economic prosperity with the overall international system and competitiveness is in serious on combat and health second new kind of benefit of threat and use technology will benefit the U.S. also great economic growth significantly. Innovation and research develops what makes increase more benefit use research and innovation. And the plan does not resolve the all causes. The only evidence to make the claim is Senator Kerry, who explicitly states that such outcomes are not guaranteed when discussing whether these reforms use successful. Mexican politicians have vested interest in dealing with foreign countries. All they care about. Re-election and Mexican law prohibits actually scratch that argument. And Mexican law prohibits foreign oil ventures the fiscal firms like Silky and Chipotle. Governments and so ugly tactic the government is best about Mexico reform. These constitutions take to determine the Queen's private public control Mexico control and article changing Article 27 is key to foreign oil ventures. That's from 13 Mexico overall and hinge on the constitution changing the article key. Government of Mexico without changing NATO and not the law by voting on the government could hold majority contracts.
Take 1 second.
2 seconds used.
I can.
Yeah.
Can you? What are you going to say? What are you going to say?
Okay. 15 seconds.
Okay. Ready? Karen plan. You're saying yes, evidence is in the context of Mexico clean technology. Why would Mexico pass a bill that would help their oil company Pemex and also invest in their renewable energies at the same time?
There's no reason they can't. Those two things are mutually exclusive.
Why would they do? Why would they
think they both benefit their economy. I don't know why those two things are mutually exclusive.
You say that the Mexican government has to make it cost competitive. If they invest in their oil sector, why would that make it cost competitive?
The reason it's not cost competitive in the status quo is because of these things called CFE restrictions. Also, it's not just about making it cost competitive.
The reason it is becoming cost competitive.
You misunderstand the counterplan. Our evidence in the context says that Kavler was a leader on climate dialogue. NATO has not been in the status quo. It's not about it not being making it cost competitive. It's about showing NATO's initiative.
If Mexico collapses, how can Mexico broker these deals over climate dialogue?
You do not have an internally to complete government collapse. Either way, our evidence in the context of short-term
evidence is timely and reverse causal, saying if we do not pass the TVA right now, this year, then it will destroy relations.
You have also conceded.
That's fine. Let's talk about case now.
Which would still exist regardless.
First, the spills advantage. All your defensive argument is from the year 2008, 2007. This is before the BP Gulf oil spill.
No, you should read the Boyarin evidence. That's from 2013. It says the Gulf was resilient because of microbes that absorb oil.
Microbes. How can microbes eat things 6,000 feet under the sea, deep sea water ecosystems? How can they eat oil down there?
Well, microbes exist that deep in the ocean. Either way, your evidence in the context is they're only devastating if they're out. If there's a place where animals can live, microbes can obviously live there.
Where do you read a card saying that Cuba is currently drilling in the Gulf of Mexico right now?
That would be the 1NC card. It says Cuba is drilling in the status quo.
China's rig left. How are they going to drill? Like, are they going to?
There are other rigs from places like
Russia left, Spain left, all these people left.
Okay, let's go on.
Evidence is projected in speech to the future nature of drilling in Cuba.
That's not what you're saying to us.
Okay, let's go back to the counter plan. You say that pushing Pemex reforms will kill. Actually, no. You say that it will result in the TBA. Our evidence is very timely, saying that constitutional reforms in Mexico is what is critical to relations right now. Why would passing renewable energy reforms be?
Because it's a conditions counter plan that does the app. It does constitute.
How can Mexico concentrate on Pemex oil reforms and renewable energy investment at the same time?
It conditions the TBHA on renewable energy reforms, which means if they say yes, it results in the TBHA, which means it solves.
Okay, that's fine. Let's talk about permutation due to counter plan. Summers card. You cut it from the dissenting party in this Supreme Court case court. Why should we prefer that?
That is irrelevant. Our evidence speaks to context.
That means
we read another card on the NATO evidence is not from a dissenting party. Either way, it speaks to precise legal definition. It says
from the dissenting party who lost that case.
Okay. The order is going to be the Pemex advantage, the Neolib critique, the government shutdown design, and then the Mexico politics is there.
Pemex, Neolib, and then
U.S. politics, and then Mexico politics.
Neolib or Pemex?
Pemex, Neolib, US politics, Mexico. Tell me when y'all are ready.
Give me a sec. I'd be good.
Both good?
Yep.
Okay. Time frame solves steps. It takes out the ability of the affirmative to solve the twice the only argument that they somehow bypass regulations, but our evidence is codified in the litigation and the nature of the affirmative is not able to overcome short-term barriers to time frame, which makes it impossible to solve in order for Pemex reform in the short term. Now the neoliberalism critique, we're not going for accept the permutation. It's just a tactic competition. It takes out any offense that they have on the critique. Now the use politics system. We are also not going for concede that there's no link to this. Takes out all of their link terms because it proves that the app would not have because it's already happened in the house now. They're their own add-on to the disease. The app obviously does not solve this. Think back to cross-sex. Their own impact evidence is in the context of global AIDS, which is in the context of global AIDS and other forms of drug violence. The app could not articulate the internal link. Just because we conceded that U.S.-Mexico relations are good does not mean that they can still get automatic access to our disease impact. Our evidence in the context of global spreads anyway. The app would not be able to resolve this because it's only in the context of U.S.-Mexico interactions. No link turns because there's no link to the affirmative and it proves that there is no offense on the dissent. Now the Mexico politics dissent, it always solves the case. It's a larger internal link to the global economy than the affirmative. Fiscal and energy reforms are necessary to create an environment of growth, but the app only resolves one. Even if this is not a completely external impact, it's a much larger internal link to their own impact. Fiscal reforms boost credit levels and interest rates would stabilize the international financial system and make investment in Mexico effective. Framing question. The app only resolves the Pemex reform, but our dissent is predicated on fiscal reform, which ensures that there's an environment of productivity and environment of business, which makes all investments necessary. That proves that the dissent is a prerequisite to the affirmative. It solves the Pemex advantage because it reforms constitutional amendments that delay the app. Now it turns the spills advantage. Fiscal reform allows for more private capital to flow in, which creates a better incentive for people to protect the environment. Fiscal and energy reform solves bad regulatory practices, which prevents a drilling accident. Now it turns legitimacy into a more complete internal link than the app. Fiscal reform prevents Mexican collapse, which propagates the perception of a strong North American partnership that generates a true form of cooperation. It also turns peso stability, which turns the affirmative. This is Bloomberg and 423 practice impact of a peer solution accord would trigger a strong negative reaction and government the bonds and currency the impasse result. The currency would rally further. Oviedo said he's optimistic about the government will resolve the conflict. Time is up. Yes, now the first argument is that there's no momentum now. Uniqueness debate goes here. Energy reform is passing. Venezuela is pushing and willing to compromise to keep the opposition on board. That's Hernandez. Prefer our evidence is predictive, which is better than their uncertain snapshot of the status quo. None of their evidence assumes momentum, which assures it will pass even if the fights. Now there is no impact to the difference in a couple of weeks. Our evidence is from August. Here is more evidence. Neither has a majority. This is Rathbone and 812. Neither can deflate national opposition. Code of Cardenas. Neither ruling party, the National Action Party, have enough votes to secure the majority need to pass the reform. Their evidence says that protests now mean that there are no momentum, but it does not make a predictive claim about the nature of agreements. Pemex reforms will pass now and are key to the Mexican economy. All relevant parties are on board. This is Kerner and 821. 80% energy from the Nepalese controversial and fierce. We are overwhelmed to change the constitution without private investment by itself is a major advanced step that is providing investment certainty. The government appears to be ready to provide pennies ready to need because constitution amendments and two-thirds majority of the protests Congress and government opposition from the left will be less than anticipated. It seems unlikely to mobilize against the reform parties seem to have maintained its usual discipline and support of the president. The reform is likely to be proven Congress before the end of the year, and it will pass, but barely. This post dates their evidence. Aguilera 99 and even recently before the energy from the not yet become better than the Oregon John. Those opposing the tradition have the upper hand, but now face an uphill struggle in preventing one of the world's most restrictive energy regimes from opening. The reforms likely to pass in some form or another, and they will pass. Protests are irrelevant. Prefer congressional consensus. Aguilera 99. To get an energy reform should focus on setting a competent and achievable goal. The left is expected will denounce the perceived price as attempt to protest Pemex. That Pemex is inefficient and not the government from trap. When it all comes down to a vote, however, joint PRI and enhanced support of our energy sector position will tilt the cards favor and reform from regardless of how many Mexicans and Iowa's boulevards shut down by analyst support. Australia reform by the failed to win the market can't be that by Canada. And NATO is pushing now. That's our 1 NC internal link evidence, which proves that even if there is some opposition now, the NATO's credibility and the status quo is able to overcome opposition now. My next argument is that the plan solves momentum. The link debate goes here. But first, there are a couple of turns case arguments. First, constitutional reform is a prerequisite to Aff solvency. This is Melbourne 12. Next, process development to effective measures no company can operate alone. Ideally, you have to joint venture with the companies who are cutting edge and appropriate Mexican constitution. And second, pressing joint ventures before a Mexican constitutional amendment cause mass litigation, conflict, and uncertainty, which turns every advantage. 11. Conflict, research, trespass, and maritime terror bans not connected to the Mexican constitution. The constitution of for the jury for considering contracts. The constitutional amendment is necessary. Otherwise, the process of negotiating joint development between difficult legal uncertainty framework with regards to loopholes and condemn projects litigation. All parties will suffer. Now, the rest of the link debate. The plan destroys NEO's credibility, which takes out their arguments. The plan gives them momentum. Perception of public U.S. engagement in Mexican energy policy undermines reforms. It's perceived as foreign interference, which a framing question. The 2EC evidence is under-highlighted and does not make much of an argument. It's also speculative and says that the Aff somehow provides momentum. It derails momentum from NEO by being perceived as interference. Now, even if Mexico has pursued energy reform, that does not take out the dissent because the dissent is based on U.S. involvement, which is a unique link. Now, U.S. involvement in Mexican energy creates massive massive domestic opposition. Hence, Lexington 13. It says that because it becomes part of the national identity, the government framed first resistance of units, only want to get all such but create the demonstration, the Iraq residents side, and overuse which for joint ventures derails public reforms, which turns the Barnes and Levin, Mexican language, their children sent to perceive building by the U.S. public position, but opening for Mexico offensive foreign development actually undermine reformers. Mexican must to the future of Mexico all sectors. This is when they say public prophecy necessary to obtain reform. That they say that the plan solves the anti-Americanism link, but our links are not just based off anti-Americanism, but regardless, the plan is seen as an olive branch by the U.S. to NATO, which causes factions within Congress that are particularly anti-American to rise up. Now, their evidence is not comparative, and it just said that the plan was talking about CHG does, but it's also from a U.S. policy analyst who obviously has no idea about the way that Mexican politics operate. Proves the link turns the case.
Correct. Did you time or you want mine? I was not timing. Alright, so I started this at 350. It's at 116, which means you use 244.
Yeah, I have 245.
Okay. And then we started with 928. Since we should have 6. 44. Yeah. We have 2 separate docs. You want us to combine them? Or you want us to combine them? This one got really good. It's called 1 yard actual. Ready for an order? Velocity on this.
I'm sorry.
Relations.
What's the first thing you said?
Velocity on this. Pellets. Stills. The QPQ counterplan. The K. The continuing resolution descent.
Relations connect spells. You know what?
QPQ.
Okay.
The K.
Can you do it one more time? Sorry.
YC case order. The QPQ counterplan. Neolib. Continuing resolution. Yeah.
Alright.
And what's the case order?
1AC order on relations panic spill. I'm just the only cards other than the ones you gave me. I'm reading our definition, so you really don't need it. Everybody ready? All right. Relation Mexico concept is no impact of all allows we're still going to go for the Mexico class internally because that kills the Mexican economy, turns the net benefit to this end, and the net benefit to the end because the drug violence takes over that class of the Mexican economy, which we have isolated internally away from the side. That will do penalty advantage for that the multi-defense was new in the block. You don't get to do this disregarded because the 2 seasons last time before they have to be off. It's new negative block one puts undue pressure on the running which means that competitive sideways in terms of case independently that you don't got if you go for the economy because the only way for the parents to be competitive with for the economic, the only way for them to have competitive the U.S. economy survives and the Mexican economy survives. The counterline kills the Mexican economy more than that later. The Article 20 internally to the constitutional internal don't find the one easy carrier says that exploits a constitutional loophole, which is the reason why we solve this. Also, reforms will lead to these constitutional changes, which is the reason. The time frame solving deficit doesn't matter because at least the perception investment will make investors invest in payments to solve. That will spill demand as a key advantage. We will stay to debate on the fact that if Russia, China, and Spain all left, we do not. We didn't read a piece of evidence for this. If you look this online, they don't have a piece of evidence that they're still drilling. This is all from 2012. Also, the speech and advocacy arguments are not true. It's not originally the correct evidence was going to make a differential thing that the last political bill put us on the road, which is the reason why it doesn't solve. Also, if they win their biodiversity defense, obviously that the warming impact defense goes away because species will just be able to adopt the warming. That will do the QPQ count. The first is the solvent deficit QPQ count. Just think about it. If Mexico invested in renewables, that's going to kill their national oil company. That is just obvious because renewables will pay off, which is the solvent deficit they have. Now, first, certainly immediately count lines are a voting issue. It always interferes all their offense because it leads to the YC. With the YC's only way to have clash and impact debate. It makes them confident because they're forced to. And so the bulk of our 8-minute offense, if we don't have the offense, obviously that debates won't be in depth, so we won't learn anything. And it turns to topic education arguments because we'll shift to the new relevant events like Mexico renewable energy where we can be focused on the YC. It doesn't kill it always opportunity cost decision making because we only decided over irrelevant things and nothing, which is the reason why it always now also now will stay no way. First time, even if the government say yes, Pemex will stay no, it'll kill the Pemex. This proves it doesn't. All the evidence saying is about biofuels. They say that our evidence is biofuels. They think about it, biofuels trade off oil, renewable energy trade off oil. This is the reason why Mexican government will not want to kill Pemex and the reason why they don't want renewables. They ask for it, which is the reason why they're prioritizing that. Right now the conditionality, now the conditions, solving deficit. First is to proceed at building. Think about it, Mexico passes it and says that Mexico passes the agreement and agree with the U.S. and then the U.S. is taking a condition on something that Mexico passed and gave it to it. That is foresee that bullying kills the relation advantage with interlinks which we get interlinked to the drug advantage. They say that evidence is not about the TVA. They say that the TVA leads to a no. That even if you do TVA, it's not going to solve the relation advantage because it's going to be perceived as bullying in that way. Now the permutation to the trial. First, that doesn't be up with QPQ because economic engagement can be both as us and us. Engagement can be unconditional. Economic engagement might differ. Can choose a rule of penetration global entry to global economic area. Mark that card there. Also, should does not require certainly GOE to us a definition against the American economy. Looking into the major part of the first American economy, product document justification, all also prevention, something objective, must indicate a unconditional requirement. Now, substantially just means law, just way information causes substantially means to a large degree. Now, resolve doesn't require certainly what's its outside resolve. So that way, all the office of permutation are certainly makes company one. There's a reason why the permutation is justified. Now, clean tech does not solve it. Even if we go cost comparative in the long term, it's not completely cost comparative right now. The government doing it doesn't solve because the government will pick winners, which will fail in the long term. Now, the permutation duos. See, permutation duos solve the condition because if they would say yes to arguments, after that, Mexico will say yes to condition. We'll still pass the TV regardless. You can consider this a live permit. Even if you do both at the same time, it still solves a net benefit. Now, the Neolib K conditional is a voting issue. From one considered option, class always all everything because the two they have dropped the late to evidence based scenario. Classes so they need to know all two ways the options, which we don't do the evidence comparison and the research necessary to evaluate best way. Always negative facts because it's a negative side by side right now. The one is the order is impossible conditionality, two is the critical thing, and one conditionality solves this barrier because we are allowed to do more in-depth comparison on this one. The reason is you to reject a team to deter them from having it doesn't turn late to having skill because it's having Singapore so now you can just throw things at the wall. Now the continued resolution is that you have messed this up. They have conceded that no link because the House passed. Except think about this, their internal legals allowed the GOP compromise the only continued resolution. If we give the GOP what they want and let the oil lobby like the doing the plan, that means that the plan will break the GOP compromise, let the continued resolution pass. No, you did not concede impact evil, which is this is an extra advantage of disease always in terms that you risk the negative credit because you cannot come back from these. Not with the negative credit at first, all the terms getting started do not make any sense because they didn't have any card about fiscal reforms coming right now. The entire D side is based on energy cooperation. We will defend win that's not going to pass right now. First is the education reform and economic decline Trump says Buenos Aires and not the native payment office allows for the back road education law by class for and second many opposed by NATO has taken too much role. Now the PRA is going nuts right now. Energy reform will not pass us. Not one. The world's never old challenge found the PRG. Never seen the most significant reform that's why now we control unions because even a lot of the cards are conclusive about energy reform passing right now. It just isn't NATO pushing. NATO pushing not sufficient. If he does not have the US backing of the TVA, something that Mexico outreach. So once he Kirk Evans says it's a hot button investigation, NATO will like a loser if he push energy reform with the United States and not pass another link to it. This is where we actually link all the cards about litigation and constitutional are all from 2011, and then the TVA passed, which is the reason why the impact should have happened already. And to be said, if Mexico passed the TVA, that should have happened. Both the PN and the PR supported the TVA. That was one of the ones the carriers and the Twist Evans. So those are the two main parties that are key to doing it, which is the reason now the anti-Americans internally we saw that back. Our card posting, which is important in the context of the TVA debate, because anti-American because Mexico's reached out to the US and now the US has turned to do that. The House passing it should disprove the internal link, which is the reason why the plan is all in branch means that it solves the internal link and we gain our advantage.
Alright. How much time do I have left?
5-11.
Cool. What was your articulation of the link turn on this continuing resolution?
So you conceded that Republicans passed in the House. You said what the plan does is pass in the House, which gives the House Republicans what they want, which will resolve the gridlock over continuing resolution. Because one is that it will be perceived as a win, which means that they'll agree to what Obama does, and two is that oil lobbies love it, so they'll, even if Republicans are still like iffy, the oil lobbies will give them the money to pass continuing resolution.
Evidence says that TVHA passed the Mexican. When did it pass? Which evidence do you have that says when it passed and which?
April 20th, 2012.
Okay. going to be the conditionality debate, the QPQ counter plan, the dissad, then
Which dissad?
what?
Which dissad?
Oh, sorry, the Nieto dissad, then the other dissad, the politics dissad, then the relations advantage, then the skills advantage, and the economics advantage.
Okay, one conditionality.
Okay, sorry. Conditionality.
Yeah.
QPQ counter plan. Nieto dissad. Politics dissad.
C.
Relations.
C.
Spills. Panic.
Same.
Yeah. Right. Make it shorter again. Not very tall.
Almost as tall as them.
Not quite. Got a few inches off. All right. Ready? Conditionality, our interpretation, one conditional plan, one conditional counterplan. We can't cross by arguing to different worlds. They've conceded the ideological flexibility piece of offense. It's a key model of decision making because testing the Aff modeling is the only way we learn to make good decisions by learning to defend against all forms of opposition. That means we need a K counterplan and a dissent. So two conditional advocacies are key. Their only argument, first of all, their argument is research this. Doesn't make any sense. There's no reason conditionality decreases research. If anything, it increases research because it means there are more things they have to answer and more things we can catch. Also, it doesn't increase evidence comparison. And this round was pretty good. We can get it in depth later in the round. There's also no terminal impact to class from the 1 years. So don't let them do new work here. Also, the side bias is irrelevant. It's a question of which is the best form of education. Now, it's not a reason to reject the team. We have conceded reasonability. Could be the interpretations, forces, the limits, race to the bottom. This also applies to conditionality because it means they will constantly trying to limit the negative interpretation, which means that you should, unless we made debate on manual, which we didn't, you should vote. You should not vote on this. Also, we link to advocacy because, of course, the act we defend against a variety of arguments that counterplan not going for a conceived purpose of just test competition. There's no external evidence beside theory, which I'll answer your conditional counterplans. The reason to reject the argument, not the team either way. They are key topics of education because it's a major issue about engagement. Means we internal link to the possible offense. Also key to understand them a new teaching policy implementation focus on process provides a better way to come up with solutions to problems around the Nieto dissad. Framing questions, they have conceded the fiscal reforms portion of this debate. There was not word one in the 1AR on fiscal reforms in Mexico, which means that is a larger internal link to the global economy, which was conceded. The only impact in this round without impact defense is the economy impact, which means you are definitely going to vote on that impact. Whichever team accesses a better internal link to the economy, and we have a conceded one means you vote for the negative. Now, fiscal reform boosts credit levels and interest rates, which stabilize the internal financial system and make investment in Mexico effective. That's skin evidence. It solves the heavy immunity because it reforms the constitutional amendments that delay the act. That is what their evidence in the context of it does not say that the TPH would be sufficient. It only says their evidence is not in the context of TPH being sufficient. In the context of Mexican constitutional amendments, there are evidence even speaks to it. Now it turns the spells, and they've conceded turns the spells advantage because fiscal reforms allow more private capital flow. Also turns legitimacy because it has a more complete internal link to the after fiscal reforms prevent maximum clap, which propagates the perception of strong North American positive. They've also conceded the Bloomberg evidence that it turns peso stability, which is a much larger internal link to the Mexican economy. Now the uniqueness debate there. Evidence is terrible on this question. A couple things. You from the negative evidence because it speaks to consensus. Nieto is pushing and willing to compromise to keep opposition on board. That's the Hernandez evidence prefer evidence because it's predicted, which is better than the uncertain snapshot. The status quo they've conceded that their evidence is not predictive, which means you prefer. It's also momentum, and it's momentum which saves something first. The thing that Rathbone evidence that Nieto has a majority in the status quo. Second is the Kerner Hernandez evidence of Pemex reform and Pemex reforming now, and all relevant parties on board. It's like both the PAN and the PRA, which is what the types of opposition their evidence speaks to. Also, are aware evidence that the protests are irrelevant. Their evidence is only concept to congressional project, which means it doesn't apply. First of all, their Weber evidence just says there will be a demonstration against it. Doesn't is insufficient to actually overcome the affirmative. Second of all, their educational reform is not. It does not say that is coming before Pemex. Only that Nieto has a lot of things to do as long as when the Pemex and fiscal reforms are coming first. That is sufficient. Also, they say that the PRD is irrelevant. They have no reason that the PRD is key, which means their Malin evidence is completely irrelevant. Now the link debate. Link debate. Their evidence does missing the Hensky and Wilson evidence of post-date April 24th. It's from June. It says the only thing that sets the signal is the key Obama. The only thing that triggers the dissent is the signal of Obama approving the Mexican passage is irrelevant because the people who are voting for TBA jail reform are not the same people who are going to vote for Pemex reform. It's a question of the weight perceived by the U.S. A couple different links. First, the Melgar evidence that says constitutional reform is a First, it's the Hennessy evidence that says that the Hennessy evidence says Obama statements are massively unpopular. Second is the Starr evidence that says like things like hypersensitivity to use involvement trigger. They just said. Third is the Oliver's evidence that says like they said the PRI, which is key to which supports the TBHA but does not support the PHA. The PRI which does not support U.S. involvement. They support energy reform but do not support U.S. involvement. Not for the public evidence. Hakeem evidence is specific. They are going to try to spin this into stats, but they have no evidence that the TBHA. They have no evidence that Obama has approved. Because Obama has not approved this, that's that should trigger the link other advantages. Continuing resolution, no turn the plan doesn't spill over the end of the taxpayer time. With the ability to get a compromise in the continuing resolution, even if GOP is looking for more revenue with the context of tax, the affluent spillover.
Economy outlays.
Economy outlays. Elections. No, this doesn't turn the distance because they have no way that that's key to the economy. They do not have an internal link to overall state collapse because the fiscal reforms are insufficient to overcome those internal links either. Wait, it doesn't solve because relations are, they can see that multilateralism fails because there is no compromise over other issues in the tax where they provide a single way Mexico was able to broker compromise, which means there is literally zero impact to this advantage. Zero, all their terminal impact lists are about brokering global compromise, which the app is insufficient to do. That's the Libra evidence. Now these spills and advantage, I only need to win one piece of defense here. That's the Guayarma evidence. They have not answered that the microbes will be able to eat the oil and prevent impact from spills. None of their evidence speaks to microbes, which means that I do not have to win very much defense here. Third is the Pemex advantage. Long time frame has conceded the only way reforms happen in the status quo is if the Mexican government passes them. They have no way. The perception is sufficient to overcome that, which means they have no internal link.
644, right? Yep.
Sorry, let's give a copy of my yes, their impact where it says fiscal, not single. You just cross that on the line. This is it. This is it. We're not a single car saying fiscal reforms the past time. Yeah, so external internal producing cutting the no, on the drug class. That's an external internal link because this found in the frame of this. Yeah, but there's still politics that. Just be like, they have massive politics that the internal relations, even if we don't win up those two drug arguments, we have a straight term fiscal returns to the class. Straight term is that. Do you need my help writing notes? I'll start looking for the next round.
The Aff was TDA. Yeah, US Mexican relations, PMAX, and what else was?
Hey, Katie, which link evidence cards did you sign?
Hold on. The Hennessy Wilkin card, both of them.
Yep.
Barnes evidence. Star evidence. The Oliver evidence. And Star was the Oliver evidence.
spills, the politics advantage, the endocrine.
What's the order after case?
The politics advantage, the endocrine. Is everyone ready? The affirmative is the only one who can solve for the Mexican copy. We have two internal links. The first one is going to be the Pemex reform, which was our Pemex advantage. The one I see. The second one is the relation. The drug cartels are going to collapse the Mexico economy. We are the only ones winning that debate. We have strengthened the fiscal program. We will win the external risk of a disease impact, which means you're going to have to vote for at the end of the debate. The relation of the fiscal passage does not solve for the drug cartels. The drug cartels are still going to continue to be in the Mexico unless we are able to strike down upon the U.S.-Mexico relation. Without this, Mexico's economy will inevitably decline because the drug cartels are infiltrating the economy, infiltrating the political system, and driving it into corruption. When the Mexico becomes a failed state, there will be no economy to support. It's an individual internally that the fiscal reform is not able to solve. It does not solve for the relation of that because TV is a unique symbolic issue that we are only able to solve. The economic advantage, the long time frame does not matter because of our perception argument. We are able to drill with Mexico because of constitutional loopholes. When Mexico wrote the Constitution in the first place, they did not expect to find trans hydrocarbons with Mexico, which is able to solve.
Just concede the argument. That takes out the impact of this side because reform, even if you do constitutional reforms, no one invests, so they don't have an impact.
Exactly. That means the only internal link to economic reforms is the Mexican drug cartel, which causes the economic crisis. No one will invest in Pemex, which means their internal link is inevitable. Regardless, we will still straight turn the impact. Goes to spills. Concede the impact, but we're not going for politics. Now, the two of them was incoherent and not clear on this. Give me any leeway right now. The fiscal battle is not going to pass in this status quo because of Republicans and Obama are not negotiating over here right now because Republicans are going to be a hard study and do not want to work with Obama. Our link turn is specific about the energy policy and freedom of offshore. It will be a concession to Republican and GOP officers who will love that and start fighting for fiscal balance. It specifically makes a causal link between Obama's use of the free offshore areas and passing the fiscal budget battle in the status quo. Now, even if that doesn't happen, the oil lobbies are going to push the Republicans to like the TBA anyway to be able to pass for this. This has been continuing the 2NR, and there was no turns the disease impact. The disease causes extinction, which is ultimately the economy cannot turn it because when disease gets out of control, then they cannot stop. They cannot produce enough vaccines to stop the spread of disease, which is going to cause the annihilation of our entire planet. Even if this is not, may not be a big impact, it's an external impact to the Pemex reform, which means that it's going to outweigh any scenario that. Now, the economy still cannot turn the CDC impact because the budget battle is a fiscal argument. If it gets cut because the politics is said, that means the economy, even if Mexico's economy growth, it cannot solve for it. Go on to the credit. I will start with the link debate here. The link is the way you got framed the debate because uniqueness is always time sensitive and will always change, but the direction of the link is what matters the most. They have no specific evidence on the transboundary hydrocarbon agreement. Good evidence is all specific how Mexican officials who need to pass the Pemex energy reform not because there's public opposition and opposition from the PRD and the public right now. The only way they can be able to pass sufficient reforms is by showing the public and the PRD that they can protect their energy resources while cooperating in joint venture. All their link evidence from joint venture from 2011 would mean that the passage of the TBA should have triggered that already. Anything before the passage of the TBA does not matter in this debate. Now here's the check on all their link arguments. The Mexican Senate has already ratified the transboundary hydrocarbons agreement, which means that the politicians who have to pass the energy reform have already spent the political capital, already spent their decision on the transboundary hydrocarbon agreement. It's only a question of the United States, which means there can be no polarizing in the Mexico Senate or no political capital spent by NATO if we're doing it. The joint oil protection arguments were answered above. Also, extend what our which said that only the TVA is able to solve for that. We are able to solve for the anti-Americanism, like Broder record indicates that the only reason Mexico is afraid of the United States is because they think we're going to drain their hydrocarbon resources and steal it from them. But a cooperative joint venture with the TVA, which is equal and safe joint production, is able to solve for that. Now the uniqueness argument. First, I'll address the fiscal reform argument here. They have not read any uniqueness evidence on the fiscal reform, nor have they read any link evidence on the fiscal reform. Yes, the fiscal reform may be important, but that is coupled with energy reform, which means that it's not going to pass right now. They have no unique dissent, which means you have to prefer the energy reform, which they actually read cards on. We have straight turn. Now, all the reasons that it turns does not matter because we have kicked out the relation to legitimate and oil spills. Also, we have straight turn the dissent. Now, Neo is not pushing right now. He does not have the capital or enough seats there. 6 seats, so even if the PIN and the PRI work together. Now, here's the kicker. They have conceded the education bill summer. The only argument she has in the 2 is that education not happening. Guess what? Education was passed in the summer, not implementation. It being debated before the fiscal and education reform. That was Buenos Aires hard evidence in 9-3. That means it makes a direct causal argument that the battle over the education law will undermine the plan to overhaul the energy sector, which means NATO has no political capital and has undertaken 2 main projects to be able to pass the energy reforms right now. Even if that's true, the TB is the only popular state and has already been passed in Mexico. There is absolutely nothing, and you guys prefer the collapse of the Mexican state because of drug cartels over there internally. Good debate.
I see the Lincoln uniqueness cards from both sides on the edges.
Yep. That's the one you see back.
Yeah.
All the cards.
I just want to make sure this is the right thing. Let's see.
I think so. Did it?
Yeah, double check.
Yeah, I can.
Just want to make sure you
Did I mention this card? On the day.